The worker in the average mill, mine, shop, or factory was once a very lonely and faceless individual. He was a clock number, and his value was measured only in terms of productivity. He was fired at the whim of the boss. When his pay was cut, he took it on the chin and suffered in silence. But in 1936, the men and women in these industries made up their minds to do something about their deplorable conditions. They built the most powerful union of all time, the Steelworkers Organizing Committee, later to become the United Steelworkers of America and Canada. With the union came dignity and recognition. It brought the worker the right to speak his piece. It brought a cooperative relationship with co-workers instead of a dog-eat-dog existence. Out of the struggle to build the union has emerged a new term, industrial democracy. Out of the bitterness has grown a more rational labor management relationship which defines mutual rights and responsibilities. The key to this dramatic change is the United Steelworkers of America, the union of more than 1 million men and women who work in the mills, mines, and factories. This is the story of your union, and here to tell that story is your international president, David J. McDonald.
The United Steelworkers of America is the proudest union in the world, and I might add the most useful union, because everything made by steelworkers benefits every person in the world. Steel for bridges or boats, aluminum for airplanes, and containers for everything imaginable. Let's start our story with you, the member. What happens from there? Well, as you know, you're a member of a local, and you elected your own union officers right from your plant. There are 2,406 steelworkers local unions in the United States and Canada. Some of the locals have their own buildings, while others will rent halls or storerooms for meeting places. What does your local do for you? Well, it's your headquarters for your local problems and grievances, for your social affairs, for you. But you wouldn't have a local if you didn't have a contract. It's interesting, I think, to tell you that we have some 2,000 individually signed contracts with firms whose manufacture concerns, among other things, basic steel, steel fabrication, iron, aluminum, non-ferrous metal, and allied manufacturing. Supervising all contracts is your International Vice President, Howard R. Haig, whose duty it is to see that your local contract is agreeable to the wage policy established by your elected delegates. In your contract department, every contract ever signed by your union is kept on file, some 2,000 agreements. And it's the job of the people in this department to know what's in those contracts too, so they can put their finger right on a particular problem or a particular settlement when the occasion arises. We have a Constitution which governs our rights, responsibilities, and privileges as union members. Everybody in the union is equal under that Constitution, drafted at conventions by representatives elected from the local membership. Yes, this is a democratic union. Our officers are chosen by secret ballot. Our policies are determined by elected representatives. Union negotiations are carried on by a wage policy committee elected by the local membership. This is the office of John Kniff, who serves as administrative assistant to I.W. Abel, your International Secretary-Treasurer. Working hand in glove with Mr. Abel is Clark Appleby, Chief of the Accounting Department. This division has 45 employees who work with the most modern accounting machines. Here, to help the locals keep their accounts straight, is your International Secretary-Treasurer, I.W. Abel, who is holding a staff meeting with his home office assistants. He also heads a group of 10 traveling auditors who alternate in checking the books of your local every 6 months. They rotate on their audits so that one auditor is actually checking on another. In addition, your International retains one of the most distinguished firms of certified public accountants in the nation, whose clients read like the who's who in big business. And you're part of a big business yourself. Your dues money is invested in American and Canadian government bonds. Not one penny is invested in speculative stocks. We do purchase 1 share of every company with whom we have a contract, assuring us their quarterly and annual reports, so vital to our economists. As big business has its economists, so have we. If your union needs to negotiate a contract, we need high-caliber men as brilliant as those associated with the steel, aluminum, or tin companies. The duty of our economists is to figure and project the earnings and profits of the companies with whom we do business, to know all about production from the mines to the finished product. It's this data which is invaluable when we begin negotiating a contract. When a wage increase is determined upon by an industry-wide agreement, our industrial engineers, headed by Elmer Malloy, go to work breaking down among the 32 wage classifications. It took this department 7 years of research to work out our wage and equity program in basic steel. And now they are setting it up in fabricating steel. In this way, faulty wage structures are being replaced by a fair-to-all process of classifying jobs. Millions of dollars of back pay have been won for people whose work has been upgraded. Today, steel labor and steel management have respect for each other. And as I've so often said, a mutual trusteeship for the investor. Unless people invest money in the companies you work for, you don't have work. All that we have ever asked from management is an even shake for you, the men and women who make the goods that bring profits to everyone. I respect the investor, and so should you. We're in favor of the investor getting dividends as high as humanly possible, but not at your expense. You're entitled to some of that money for the work you have performed. Some of you may have had correspondence with George Redinger and Kitty Dewey, and you might be wondering what they look like. This is George Redinger, my capable assistant, and Kitty Dewey, my secretary. This is Vince Sweeney, your Director of Public Relations. He's working with his staff on the next issue of Steel Labor, which is your monthly house organ, selected by experts in the field of public relations as one of the finest publications of its type. You would do well to keep abreast of your union affairs by reading Steel Labor from cover to cover every month, for that is our major means of reaching you and keeping you informed on what's going on. In addition, this department handles your television programs and your printed materials, such as the brochures that we issue periodically. Mr. Sweeney also supervises the production of these films. In the international office, we employ about 150 people, all working to ensure a better living for you. In the field, we have about 600 staff representatives who work with local union officers. Little wonder, then, why we are where we are today, when you see all of your American and Canadian organizers in full view. Little wonder, too, why other labor organizations say the steelworkers have the world's best labor organizations. The Steelworkers International Organization is made up of 29 districts. They have their own offices, and it's here that the field men make their headquarters. Some staff men handle 3 or 4 local unions, while others might be confined to just one large one. However, let's visit a simulated district office and see what the district director does. Here, as in other districts, the directors have weekly meetings with their staffs and discuss the problems of various locals. Perhaps the problem of one local might be solved by the experience of another. An exchange of ideas not only stimulates their thinking, but aids them in helping with the questions raised by your local. The number of members in a district will range from 20,000 to more than 100,000. Every district director is automatically a member of the board of directors or international executive board. And every 2 months or so, when I call these men to a meeting, I assume the duties of chairman of the board. It's here that we thrash out our national problems. In regard to an increase in your wages, this isn't settled by myself nor the board, but by you, back home at the locals. You elect men from the mills and plants to the Wage Policy Committee. Your representatives tell us what you want, and if within reason, we then set up the machinery to bring it about. Wage Policy Committee members are elected by you for a 2-year term. But let's continue to look around our offices, which are set up solely to be of service to you. Here is John Paston, who heads up our negotiations for our clerical and technical workers. In some companies, we now have a majority of the so-called white-collar workers in our union. Here are our specialists in the field of pensions, insurance, and hospitalization. These men are top-flight experts. They know what the company can afford, and they use this knowledge for your benefit. They are constantly traveling all over America, dealing with every company. We retain Murray Latimer, the nation's best actuarial expert, to show what will be needed to do a sound job in these fields of pensions and insurance and hospitalization. He receives information from all of the companies on payroll turnover rates and other vital statistics. Your fringe benefits are the best in labor, only because we never send a boy out to do a man's job. Your safety is paramount in our minds at all times, but safety is every man's job. Your safety director, Frank Burke, travels over the nation, instituting joint safety committees at the local level, staffed by representatives from management and labor. Our safety record is good. Edward Nasser is in charge of workmen's compensation. He's in constant touch with compensation attorneys in the various states, for every state has a different workmen's compensation law. As an example, here are the different types of booklets covering these laws. One for every state, and one for you, so that you'll know what to expect through workmen's compensation. Maybe you can obtain an idea by now that your union is a good-sized organization, one that's competent, capable, and qualified to earn the respect of the employer, as well as you, the employee. And we want to keep it that way. That's why I want to point out to you here and now that I would like you to become a part and parcel of union work. Get interested in union activities and affairs, for we're growing, and we're going to need more help in running the affairs of this union. Remember, the International is only as strong as its locals and its members, and the ability and active interest that you put in at the grassroots level will be automatically reflected in our work here. Well, on to another office that's busy working for you. Here's John Mullen, director of our Political Action Committee. It's his job to keep you informed on the right and wrong candidates for whom to vote on issues that will affect you. By wrong, I mean candidates that are openly opposed to such things as improved workmen's compensation, pensions, supplemental unemployment benefits, and so forth. In Washington, Nordy Hoffman works with the congressmen and senators. Buttonholing 531 congressmen and senators isn't exactly an easy task. It's the job of these men and our whole legislative department to inform our legislators of the conditions that exist and to see that something is done about it, whether it be Social Security, more schools, a road building program, or any of 100 things that will help build a better America. They don't always succeed in getting their point over, but they do try to inform the legislator about the steelworkers' viewpoint, a viewpoint that we express because we know that it will help benefit your next-door neighbor, your county, your state, and your nation. I think you know that they do a good job. While I'm on the subject of congressmen and senators, in fact, on all political action, let me remind you, every year there are elections for some office, be it in your community or all the way up to our National Congress. To make sure that the right candidates are elected takes money. When you're asked to contribute to a political action fund, give willingly, please, because it goes to help men who have the interests of this nation at heart. It's been said by some that labor is a wheel of the Democratic Party. This is absolutely untrue, and I hope labor will never be a wheel of any party wagon. All we want to do is to try to inform you of our studied findings regarding candidates, policies, and issues, so that you can make up your own minds on the basis of the facts. Actually, the record will show that labor on many levels has endorsed more Republicans than the National Association of Manufacturers has endorsed Democrats. And while we're in Washington, let's take a look at your legal department and Arthur Goldberg, General Counsel of the United Steelworkers of America and Special Counsel to the AFL-CIO. There's only one way to fight fire, and that's with fire. If the great and respectable corporations that we do business with can have intelligent legal minds, then so must we. And I know that in our contract negotiations, management has not found our legal guidance wanting. One of the departments that I take great pride in telling you about is our educational division, directed by Emory Bacon. Here you see him making plans for the college training that we give to some 20,000 men and women in 107 colleges yearly. Your local union officials will be glad to tell you more about this. Here for 2 weeks, our men receive instruction in parliamentary procedure and the way to handle a grievance and so forth. Because through education they will become better informed citizens for their community and better informed workers for their union. As steel workers, we're interested in the work of other steel workers throughout the world and how world affairs will affect all of us. This is Elmer Cope, our Foreign Affairs Director, who makes his headquarters in a plane or a boat. His job is to scan the activities of steel workers and steel makers throughout the world. He watches new processes, new time studies, and automation throughout the pre-steel labor world. His reports come directly to me so that I in turn can inform you. In addition to technical data, he observes the growing strength in free countries and the decline of totalitarian satellites. For the time may come when even communist Russia admits that the only way to prosperity is through free minds and free trade unions. Then the future steel mills of this country, in drawing board stage today, will be unable to meet the demand. With this information, we can go to the steel producers and urge them to make expansion plans today for tomorrow. Men being what they are, can and must be forgiven for their thoughts. But that doesn't mean we can relax our guard. Thus, the United Steelworkers of America maintains a Human Relations Committee. As you know, there are many firms that do not employ Negroes, Jews, or Catholics. And it's our job to change all this. Our committee works with state groups on securing fair employment practices. We've made great strides in this field. But the greatest classrooms to teach tolerance are the mills, where the sweat of one man blends with another's to instill understanding. Well, that's about the whole story. I may have been brief about the various activities of each department, but I did want you to have the highlights. I hope that in some small way, we've helped you to better realize the greatness of your union. There are other unions with larger memberships, but none to me so proud as us. Proud because the American economy depends upon us, and proud too because we recognize our responsibility to the American people. Thank you, and God bless you.